Hello, I'm Marius Costi. I play for St John's Deaf Football Club, where I'm also the vice chairman. I've followed deaf football since I was a boy, and I've always been a massive fan. The bigger clubs are doing well, but the smaller ones are struggling and closing, and that's a worry. What's happening to our beautiful game? I've been following the game throughout the season. I've seen the ups and I've seen the downs. This is the first season where the winners of the league automatically qualify for the European Deaf Champions League in 2019. I've met with fans, players and club managers to find out their views about what's going on in deaf football. And our story starts in the northeast. Since you've brought this team together, you've struggled to find enough players. What's going on?
I'm sure that's an ongoing problem for all clubs. On a match day, you hope you've got the 11 so that the game can go ahead. If you've only got 10 men and you're hunting around in an effort to make sure you can put out a full team, it's not ideal. What would be good for me, as a manager, is to have a squad of 20 or 25 players to choose from, so that we can work out a game plan and put out the strongest team. If you're struggling for numbers, it does have an impact. You've no choice but to put out the players you have, and that's no good. I want to be able to field my strongest team out for every game.
With these kinds of problems, how do you keep yourself motivated?
I love football. It's been my passion for about 20 years. I also think I'm a much better manager now that I'm no longer a player. The one big problem is funding. When we first set up the club, we had plenty of money from sponsorship because we were the new club. But every year, that's become more difficult. We'd be going back to the same people for money, and they'd say, but we gave you money last time. So we'd have to search elsewhere, which was harder. Football isn't cheap. It's quite expensive to keep it going.
Is there a specific reason why the funding's dried up?
I mean, really, I don't know, maybe sponsors want to put the money into bigger clubs. I don't have an answer. I've been asking myself the same question and I just don't have a clue.
At the start of the season, you brought the team together, and then halfway through the season, some of your players unexpectedly left. What happened?
Actually, that happened quite recently, and it created a major problem for us, especially when we lost Andy Ray. He was a key player for us and a big part of the club, and then suddenly he was gone. I've got no hold over the players. It's not like we're paying them, so it's up to them if they want to join another club. It's within the rules and you have to accept it, but it's a big problem.
When that happens, what do you do? Work with the players you have or go looking for replacements?
For me, you have to focus on the positives. Have a big squad, they're young, and they've got time on their side. When you lose one or two players, you have to accept they've gone. That said, the younger players are the club's future, so you try to use them and keep going.
What are your hopes for the future of deaf football, and what do you think needs to change?
I want to see the game really take off. When I watch the Premier League on TV, the quality of the football is outstanding. They have the publicity, the sponsorship, the TV deals. It's just incredible. I want to see that replicated in deaf football. For the players that are playing at an international level, to continue in what is something like a pub league, it's just not sustainable. We need to raise the game at club level so that the players feel good when they play against clubs from other countries. The standard needs to come right up so it's the same as it is in Europe.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
I live in Bangor in Northern Ireland. When I played for Sunderland, I'd fly back for games. And transferring to St John's hasn't really changed that, because both clubs are in England. Deaf football rules allow players to move to another team mid-season up until December the 31st. So that's what I did. I transferred to St John's.
How are you?
Hey, I'm good, you?
You live in Northern Ireland. You started playing for Sunderland last September, and that meant flying backwards and forwards to England. Then in December, you decided to join St John's. Can you explain why?
It wasn't an easy decision by any means. I grew up in the northeast and I love the place. But while I was in discussion with St John's about a possible transfer, it became clear how much they had to offer. What also lured me away from Sunderland was that St John's had a better chance of making it through the Deaf Champions League. So ultimately, I decided to let the manager know I'd be leaving the club to join St John's.
Can you tell me, what was it that St John's offered you?
They offered to pay the cost of flights, accommodation, and for my food, everything really. I thought it was a good deal, so I told them yes.
How was it you were allowed to transfer from Sunderland?
The rules allow a player to transfer any time from the summer, from August up until 31st of December. That's when the transfer window closes. So that's why I was able to do it. I'd made the decision to move to St John's before the cut-off date.
Do you think that's right, though, for players to be allowed to transfer mid-season?
I think it's fair enough. Players should have the choice over which club they play for, to stay if they're happy or, if not, move on. I don't think it's unfair.
As you mentioned, though, you grew up in the northeast. How did people from the region feel when they found out you'd moved to St John's? Were they okay with it?
I think a lot of them were surprised and wanted to know why on earth I'd want to move all that way to play for a club in London. But once I told them the reasons behind the decision, they were all right about me going.
So it wasn't a problem, they weren't critical, just accepted it and moved on?
Yeah, they were prepared to let me go.
Wow, so you're still flying backwards and forwards from Northern Ireland. Has that been difficult? How's that going?
Really, it's the same journey I was making to Newcastle when I was playing for Sunderland. Now that I've changed clubs, I still make the flight to England, but via a different route, so everything's pretty much the same.
I have to ask, are St John's paying you a lot of money?
Nothing, zip. Football is my passion. I'm not bothered about getting paid. It's a pleasure I get from playing the game.
How do you manage to fit in all this travelling?
Well, during the week, my time's spent at work with my family, and the weekends I spend my so-called free time playing football.
And your girlfriend is okay with that?
I have the best girlfriend in the world, one who lets us play.
Thank you for talking.
You're welcome, thank you.
Hi, I'm here at the EDF Cup semi-finals. People from all over have gathered in Leicester. I'm keen to get the views of some of the fans.
Deaf football is important to the deaf community. This is the only time in the season when people from all over the UK come together. There are loads of us fans out there, and today we all meet in one place.
I like deaf football. You know, it's good. There are less and less teams, though. We need to build it back up.
With more and more deaf clubs closing, deaf football is one of the last things that brings the deaf community together.
Whilst many senior teams are struggling to stay afloat, what's the future looking like at youth level? You well?
Yeah,
How's it going?
okay.
It looks really hard work out there running those sessions. Is it?
It is. They're a bit mischievous and cheeky. They charge around and find it hard to focus, especially if they haven't seen their friends for a while. But they're all dead keen and they love their football, so that makes coaching them easy enough.
Watching them train today, I can see already that some of them have amazing potential. How do you feel when you start them off at the club and then at some point in the future they decide to leave and you lose them?
They're classed as youth players until they're 16, at which point we offer them the choice. They can either move into the second team and continue to develop, or if they're strong enough, they can move straight into the first team. If some of those players then want to move on to join bigger clubs, that's fine. I try and encourage them to stay a couple of years so that I can help them prepare for the game at senior level because it's very different. But I don't put any pressure on them to stay, it's up to them.
So many players are moving to bigger clubs. Is it the appeal of the Deaf Champions League?
If you look at Fulham or St John's, they're the clubs taking home the trophies, and the younger players want that. I understand that, and at the end of the day it's their decision. I can't force them to stay, but if they do, I'll continue to support them.
What's the funding situation like? Has it been difficult getting money in to keep going?
Oh, it's hard. We used to get enough funding to pay for the pitch and proper coaches, but that's since dried up, and although we searched high and low, we've not been able to replace it. So now the coaches have gone, I'm the manager, and for the time being, we're having to run these training sessions ourselves until we get funding to reinstate the coaches.
Why don't you get any funding?
It's been difficult. We've applied only to be told in a lot of instances that deaf football is no longer a priority. It's the turn of other sports now.
You know yourself how difficult it can be for young people. Their confidence can really fluctuate. How do you go about getting them involved with the club?
Really, it doesn't matter what their skill or fitness levels are. Everyone's welcome to join in. We have all ages from 6 to 50. Anyone can come along. It's fun, it's part of the community. We coach them, help them to develop and stay fit and healthy.
That's good. Thank you.
Everyone's operating at the same level, so it's fair. If I'm playing with hearing people, I can't hear what's going on. But with deaf football, everyone's deaf, so it's fair.
I feel it is good to encourage members of the deaf community to play football because some deaf people think they can't do the same things as hearing people. I disagree. I think deaf people can do whatever they want to do. Getting involved in playing football is one of them.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Did you enjoy the game?
Yeah, it was exciting.
Great stuff. I have some things I wanted to ask you. I know you've been a long-time supporter of deaf football, and growing up you'd travel to games with your father and brother.
Yes, that's right.
As deaf football has grown, so has the support from the deaf community. What would be the effect if the game was to fade and disappear?
Oh, deaf football is really important for the deaf community. There's always been a strong connection with sports like pool and darts. Those have all but disappeared, but football is flourishing and with its support from the community, so it's important that it keeps going.
We've seen lots of transfers in the league. At the start of the season, teams signed new players and brought them into the club. If St John's hadn't have done that, do you think we would have been able to make it through, or do you think we would have gone out?
It's hard to say, but it helps build the squad and makes it stronger. Some teams feel that the game's not the same with wealthy clubs like St John's bringing in players, but it's made them stronger, so I say all power to them.
How do you think the deaf community see the future of deaf football?
I think the game can continue to develop, but the key thing will be funding. With more and more matches further afield, there are flights and accommodation. Money's tight, so funding is crucial.
Putting all that aside for now we're through to play in Europe next year, will you be coming along to cheer us on?
Well, it depends on work commitments, money, holidays. We'll see.
Thank you so much for chatting to me.
No problem.
Compared to how it used to be, deaf football is almost unrecognisable. It's grown massively, but let me tell you, it's great to watch.
I'm here to watch a good game of deaf football. It's quality.
It's a beautiful sight. You have the game, families, children, all belonging to the deaf community. Amazing.
I'm here at Wembley Stadium, the home of English football. Today I'm meeting with Oliver Eidsforth. He's one of the top people at the EDF. Managers are experiencing some difficulties with players who sign for clubs and then leave halfway through the season. Coaches are worried about the future of their young players, and there are concerns about funding. So I'm going to ask, what's going on? I have some questions for you. As you know, this season I've been meeting and talking to various people involved with deaf football, and I wanted to ask you, as someone who's involved in running things, how you see the game.
Obviously, there's been a lot of changes over the years. This season, it's been quite interesting. The league has expanded. We've changed the qualification route for the Champions League. New clubs have joined. But there will always be room for improvement as things evolve.
This season, EDF have decided that for the first time, the winners of the domestic league automatically go through to the Deaf Champions League. Do you think that's positive change or not?
We support the new method of qualification for the Deaf Champions League. And I think that's what the clubs wanted. We put the proposal to UK Deaf Sports that we wanted to make this a permanent change. And I think most clubs can see that this presents them with a lot more opportunities. It's no longer a lose one game and you're out situation. It's about the team's form throughout the season. If a team makes a poor start to the season but then results improve, they're still in with a chance of qualification. So everyone is in with a chance. I think most people see it as the way forward, and depending on the numbers of teams, there could be 3 or 4 places up for grabs. So my feeling is, as a system, it offers more to more teams.
The Sunderland manager expressed some annoyance that at the start of the season he had players signed, only to see some of them transfer to other clubs halfway through the season. What's your view on that?
That's a problem for any club. If they start the season with a series of defeats, or the team's performance starts to plateau, and that results in an exit of players. Having said that, players can leave for a variety of reasons. We've taken a fairly relaxed stance on this over the years. But with regards to transfers, we could adopt the same system as the professional clubs and leagues and allow transfers up until the 31st of August and then require players to stay at their respective clubs until the transfer window opens again, January time. That would allow players at clubs who felt maybe they weren't getting enough matches to move to clubs where they were going to get more games. It would also allow clubs to make a few tweaks here and there. Once the transfer window closed again, that would be it until the end of the season. So that's one thing we're looking at.
I was chatting with Johnny Nelson, and he's doing a fantastic job trying to encourage young people into the game. But I don't see that happening much in other parts of the country. How do you think you can better facilitate the development of the game at youth level?
We've always provided competitions and managed the league at senior level. Maybe if we can do the same at youth level, we can inspire the clubs, set up their own youth teams, and to provide coaching just like Johnny's doing. I'm sure we'd see that if we organised more competitions for them.
On the issue of funding, where does EDF get their money from?
We've never been funded until quite recently. Last year, having had initial discussions with the FA, they agreed and gave us a small amount, £1,000, to help us to tighten up a few things, like to develop club charters. It also went towards EDF competition costs, cup, league venues. But there are possibilities there in terms of more funding going forward. Hopefully we can broaden the conversation out with them about the FA providing proper funding for deaf football through deaf sport. So I'm tentatively optimistic about the future.
So your vision would be to secure funding to invest in the infrastructure of the game to allow it to develop, whilst at the same time continuing to support and bolster growth of the league. Then, with all this, feed into the game at international level.
Definitely. Really, that's a no-brainer. The structure is already there. By funding the game at youth level, we'll see the benefits later down the line. It's a bit like planting seeds and watching them grow and then harvesting the rewards. That's the philosophy that we want to sell to the FA. Definitely.
Thanks for your time.
It's my pleasure.
Over the past season, I've met with lots of people and asked plenty of questions along the way. It's been incredible. There are 3 key takeaways from this. One is the importance of the game at youth level. They're the future of the game, and that needs to be nurtured so that it flourishes. The EDF clearly understand this is a priority. 2 is players moving between clubs. It really is their decision. After all, they are deaf football. 3 is the EDF's vision for deaf football, which is to be applauded. But where's the money going to come from? Let's hope they can secure funding through further dialogue with the FA. Let's just hope the future's bright for English deaf football.